The views and opinions expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Reproduction or dissemination other than for the purpose of education or information without the express written permission of the Phoenix Research Institute or Nova Society Media is strictly prohibited.
I'd like to welcome everyone back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound. Today, our panel answers more listener emails. And today we will talk about a topic brought up by our listener, Robert from New Orleans. Everyone is saying the election is close, Robert says. By my count, 7 states will determine this year's president. Can you go through the states and give your opinions on how this will go? All right, Robert, great question. So today we're going to take Arizona, North Carolina, and Georgia, and we will discuss those 3. And Robert's second question is, could Ted Cruz lose in Texas? And is Texas in play?
Could we start with that one? Because
Yes,
I think Ted Cruz.
Let's start there.
I don't think he will, but I think he could lose that election. I don't think he will, sadly, but I think he could, and he's come close before. But what they're doing, one of the differences between what the Democrats are doing this year and what they've done before is that they're kind of more snarky than they ever have been, and I guess they got that from the Lincoln group or whatever they're called, who does these really snarky ads. And, has a little bit more of a sense of humor, but also real sharp about these candidates. And what they've done is they've taken that iconic image of Ted Cruz walking through the airport with his rollaway suitcase, rolling suitcase, as he comes back to Texas from Cancun, and then blames it on his daughters that he went to Cancun during a blackout and when everybody in his state is so miserable and everything. And they're taking that image and they're turning it on him in a big way. Yeah, I mean, it's possible that he could lose to a favorite son, played football at Baylor, and seems to be a reasonable person.
It's the Lincoln Project, I believe
Lincoln
you're talking
Project,
about.
Yeah, Lincoln Project.
Yes.
Which is run by Republicans, by the way.
Right.
They're all Republicans that hate Trump, and that's great. Could Ted Cruz lose? Yes, he could. Remember, when you're talking about for the Senate, United States Senate, that's a statewide election. So places like Houston, these bastions, Dallas, these bastions of big cities with a large Democrat population. Yeah, absolutely. I think he could. I was kind of surprised he had beaten Beto O'Rourke, because Beto O'Rourke was extremely popular. But yeah, there's his opponent is a favorite son, and I do think that he really does stand a pretty good chance, which would be absolutely wonderful. I think just to bring a second one, Rick Scott. I think Rick Scott in Florida is in trouble. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we'll see how that goes. By the last count, she was down still like 3 or 4 points. But again, Rick Scott never won anything big. It was always kind of just barely got by. And I think that Ted Cruz could lose. Is Texas in play? No, I do not believe Texas is in play. I don't. Even though I'm not really sure if there's an abortion thing on the Texas ballot. I don't think that there is. If there was, maybe there would be more chance that Texas would be in play. But I think that what you're seeing today is Democrats are chipping away. Texas at one point in time was a no-brainer. It was, everybody knew which way it was going to go. Today, it's a lot closer. Instead of being 10, 15 points, now you're talking 2 or 3. And I don't think it's in play this election cycle, may not be in 2028. But by the time 2032 comes along, if things continue on the way they are, I think you're going to see Texas be in play. And I think if Cruz was to win in 2024, that puts Texas even in more play in 2028, because nobody likes Ted Cruz. And I know Scott says that the Speaker Johnson has the most punchable face in, the Congress. I'm sorry. Ted Cruz has an equally punchable face over in the Senate. He does nothing to help the party. And I've always said there's one thing me and Ted Cruz totally agree on. Term limits. Ted Cruz has brought it up since he's been in, and it's the only thing I think that myself and Ted Cruz can possibly agree on. So the first part, who are we looking at first? Who do we want to look at?
Not Texas, not Florida.
Not Texas. So we've already done Texas. So what are the states again that we've got to be looking at here? Give us the first one there, Brooke.
Sure. We're going to look at Arizona first.
Okay.
Then North Carolina and Georgia. So let's take Arizona first.
11 electoral votes in Arizona. Yep. Good state.
Good state.
Popular state. Big state.
Big state.
Leaning Trump right now.
Yes.
Really depends largely on Maricopa County.
Yes. And I think that another thing that benefits the Democrats is Kari Lake being on the ballot for the Republicans. And I think she's going to get absolutely spanked in this election. That might help win Arizona for the Democrats. Now, is there an abortion on the line in Arizona?
No, there is not.
No. If there was, I think that would help the Democrats.
Yeah, I agree with that. Anywhere where there's abortion on the ballot, I think that there's a possibility that Democrats have a play there. There are 7 states, and and Florida is one of them, but I don't think Florida is in play other than that at all, unfortunately. But Maricopa, I think, has 6 out of 10 voters lives in Maricopa County. Romney won it in 2012. Trump won it in 2016, and Biden won it in 2020 by 44,000 votes. It was pretty close, but he won it. The other big county that you can sort of count on is Pima County, where Obama won it, Clinton won it, and Biden won it. And Biden won it big, 97,000 votes. So that's right down there on the border, and the border isn't as big an issue in Arizona as it is in, say, Texas. So Arizona is kind of an interesting state, but it's really driven, like New York is, by the big cities. And it's, Maricopa is just so massive that it can tilt the election one way or another. So give Harris a puncher's chance there.
I agree. So what do you want to go to next? North Carolina.
North Carolina, yes.
I think, once again, sometimes down ballot does have an impact on the election. I think Mark Robinson running for governor, and everybody hates him. He's losing by like 15 points at this point in time. He probably has no chance whatsoever. That may drive enough votes in those big counties, such as Raleigh-Durham, Charlotte. Again, this is another state where there's some really large pockets of large metropolitan areas that can have a significant influence on the election. The fear is that Asheville, North Carolina, has always pretty much gone toward the Democrats because, again, it's a more, I guess I would call it a yuppie area. I mean, it's sort of like Soho. It's a beautiful place. Absolutely love Asheville. But with the damage that's happened from the hurricane, not really sure. People have got other things to think about than the election. So that may drive down voter count there. But just like Arizona with Kari Lake, I think Mark Robinson does help the Democrats. And I do see North Carolina as being in play.
Yeah, I wonder, first of all, North Carolina, I believe, was the tightest of the states that Trump won in 2020, that it was the smallest margin of votes that Trump won. So it came real close to going Biden. And but however, Democrats haven't won it since Obama's first term. But I do wonder whether the disinformation campaigns that were going on out in Asheville and the western part of the state are such that, as with, Romney going to New Jersey and Obama going to New Jersey and embracing Chris Christie there turned a lot of people against Romney, who had been pushing, as most Republicans do, less help by the government for storm ravaged areas. Would that have an effect on Western North Carolina when they see that, number one, they have a nut running for governor, and number two, the Trump campaign really went out of their way to spread disinformation and lies about what the situation was that they were seeing on the ground, where they were being, rescued and dug out and helped, and you turn on the news and you see Trump saying, well, the governor here has done a horrible job, and they're ignoring the western part of the state, and all kinds of untrue things like that. Whether that would be enough to turn enough people around so that Harris could actually win that state. It was, I believe, a 4,000 vote victory for Trump in 2020. It was that close. And so, it really could be, it really could swing to Harris if the people, finally catch on that they're being lied to all the time by the Republicans, and that they really need to, to put an end to this craziness.
And the last one would be Georgia. It's going to be the same thing. Atlanta area, massive area. It's going to be about turnout. It just as it always is when it comes to the difference between Democrats and Republicans. And famously, Biden won that by 11,800 and some odd votes. Very, very close. And I think it's going to be close this year. And this, to me, is the true toss-up. This is a toss-up state. What, it's 16 electoral votes, I believe they've got there, something like that. And it's going to be a hard-fought state.
16, yeah.
Yeah, I think the disappointment is that for some reason, black men are starting to move more toward Trump. As far as polling data is showing, I don't know if that's, and again, we don't put a lot of faith into polling data, but that would be truly unfortunate. But I just see this state as being a total toss-up. This is going to be the one that's going to take a while to really sort out, probably more so than Arizona and North Carolina. But this is going to be tight.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll agree with that. The suburbs are gonna, the suburbs went out for Biden, right? That was a big surprise. We're also real proud of that state for voting for a black man and a Jewish man for the U.S. Senate instead of the people that were there, the incumbents that were there already. And this is largely a get out the vote effort. I agree with that. And you see all the areas around Atlanta, Sandy Springs and Roswell and Johns Creek are big populations, and can swing probably the state by themselves towards Harris. So it's just a matter of getting out the vote, and I'm sure they're concentrating on that.
But let's also remember that this is the state where Marjorie Space Laser Taylor Greene comes from, and you'd never know. But she comes from like the Dalton, Georgia area, which is not a very big populous area as compared to like Atlanta and some of the really large areas. So Savannah will definitely go toward Harris. Atlanta will go to Harris. There's no doubt about that. Now just those other counties surrounding them, those large counties, depends on where they go. But is it in play? Absolutely. Absolutely. But we just can't forget the polls. Go out there and vote your conscience and be over and done with. Don't let the polls make the decision for you.
Thank you both. And thank you to Robert. And next time we will continue with your question and wrap up the rest of the states. So we'll see you again next time on the Nova Society.
So that's all the time we have for today's episode. The Nova Society is a production of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this week's episode, the Phoenix Research Group, an independent research consortium offering social issue solutions to NGOs and international government agencies through multidisciplinary, nonpartisan, and unbiased research. We'd also like to thank our podcast partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Podkite, who does all our analytics, iHeartRadio, where people get their music and podcasts, Apple iTunes, the largest source of music and podcasts on the internet, Spotify, the most popular source for the Nova Society. The Nova Society is available on all these and other quality platforms mentioned in our description. We'd like to thank our listeners. Without you, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a comment, a question, or would like to be a guest on the Nova Society, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. Always remember, the power of society is knowledge. So for Dr. Scott Gershwer, Dr. Priscilla Hobbs, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and all of us here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Be well, and we hope to see you again next time.